All right, guys. So this is a little different. So forgive me if this sounds a little distracted or if it's a little less organized of thought than usual. It's a lot different to teach to an empty car than it is to your classroom. But wanted to dive into local government. So state, local government. Just about everything we've been talking about so far has been federal government. So now it's time to kind of talk about the state and local government. And in many ways, we could teach a whole class, and people do teach whole classes based on just local or just state government. So like everything else we're talked about, remember the rules. It's complicated. So we're going to just barely scratch the surface of what local and state governments do and are. But the goal here is to give you an understanding that even though most of the news, most of the podcasts and news broadcasts and newspapers and everything, they focus on the federal government and federal issues. But really, the state government affects your life, the day-to-day of your life, much more than the federal government. And your local government affects your life even more than the state government on a day-to-day basis. So we're going to talk about state government first. So state governments, they oversee, and like we've talked about, Tennessee has, we've talked about the state government a little bit with the Tennessee legislature and all that, and we've talked about some of the departments. But what the state does is it passes laws that affect all of the state. But it's also important to remember that the federal government derives its power, at least initially, from the states. Remember the Constitution, the states had to adopt the Constitution. So the states are the source of the power for the federal government. Again, at least originally. Probably not so much now, but at least originally. That's also true for the local governments. So local governments derive their power from the state. And often, legally, they are referred to as divisions of state government. So any division of state government, that would be counties and cities and school districts and all that kind of stuff. So the state is where all that authority comes from. And again, over time, that's kind of been eroded away, and people have thought of themselves more as Americans than Tennesseans. But originally, that's where the authority all came from, is from the state. So let's talk about the state a little bit. The state has a bunch of different departments, and similar to the president, the governor has a cabinet, and the cabinet's made up of all of the people in charge of each of the departments of state government. And those are called commissioners. So at the federal level, they're called secretaries, usually. And in the state government, they're called commissioners, usually. So that's where the power in the state government comes from, in the executive branch. So you got governor and his cabinet, made up of commissioners. And there's a military role. A lot of people don't think about the fact that their states have militaries. It's the state guard. So there's National Guard and there's State Guard. And the guard units, and actually I think those are both connected and commanded by the governor. So the guard is commanded by the governor. That's who's in charge of the guard. So there's a military component, there's public safety component, there's a law enforcement component, and that's the Department of Safety, and that is the state troopers. So state troopers are the folks who drive around. They have a jurisdiction anywhere in the state of Tennessee, and they can arrest you for anything that's against the law. So they're enforcing state laws. And then you have, in addition to the state troopers, you also have the TBI, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. It's the same as the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, but it's just for the state. So, and I'm just throwing a couple of these things out there. So that's the state government, and most of what the state government does, all the highways and they pass legislation to mandate when hospitals can be built and if they can be built. So they have a lot of reach, anything inside the state of Tennessee. And those are called laws of general application, or general laws, okay? They're laws of general application. They can be applied to anywhere in the state of Tennessee. But there's also local laws, and those local laws, or private acts, is another way to think about it. They're private. They're not public. They don't affect everybody. They're private. They affect just a small group of Tennesseans. And those are the things that create counties and cities. So the state government set up the counties. You can't be a county without the state telling you can be a county. Just like you can't be in the United States without the states saying that they approve the Constitution. So there we have the local government is part of the state government. And like the videos that I had you watch, there's local government has got just an absolute huge number of things that affect your life. So there's a state highway department that covers all the interstates and a lot of the roads that you and I drive on every day. You don't think about them as being state roads, but they are. And you can see them on a map that have SRs, state route. That means that the state pays for it. But there are some county roads and there are city roads. And county roads and city roads, the county has to take care of the county roads and the city has to take care of the city roads. So there are highway departments and street departments, highway for the county, street for the city. So that's another interesting thing. We drive every day. We don't think about it. The schools are managed at the county level, but there are also city schools. So we have county schools and city schools. Some places even have special school districts that are a mix of city and county, or maybe they go over the county lines or city lines. But you can even have special school districts where the district is set up by itself, not with a county or a city. So the trash that gets picked up, so in cities, typically you have curb trash pickup. And in counties, you have convenience centers. You have to take your trash to a place and put it there. Typically in cities, the government does more for you. They make, you have sidewalks in cities usually. You have curbside trash pickup. You have a lot of cities also have utilities connected to them. Murfreesboro used to have Murfreesboro Electric. It was bought out by Middle Tennessee Electric a few years ago. There's a Murfreesboro Water Company, a water utility. So a lot of times the cities provide extra services above and beyond what the county provides. Another one of those is sewer systems. So inside the city, you're on some sort of sewer system. Outside of the city, you're on a septic system. So you have to take care of your property has to take care of your own waste, your own septic system. So you see how there's really a stark difference in city and county and the services they provide. But these local governments provide an absolute, by far, it's the biggest impact on your life. When you pick up the phone and dial 911, the people who come will work for a city or a county. So these are the people who, these are the agencies, the departments of local government that will just radically affect the way you do your life. And in the court system, there are city courts, county courts, and then there are district courts inside basically state courts. And in Murfreesboro, we have the JC, or Judicial Center, and it has all those. It has the county and state court system in it. Each city has their own city courts. Typically, those have to do with very minor crimes, parking tickets, speeding tickets, that kind of thing. Disobeying city ordinances will get you into a city court usually. So this kind of gives you an idea about what this difference between city and county, kind of local government, state government, and federal government. Now, you still have elections in county governments, and there's a couple little nuances here that I'm going to throw out, okay? So typically we think of counties as being kind of big areas, and then cities being inside of counties, and that's kind of the way we think about it. But it's really a lot more complicated than that. There are a few examples of things that don't fit that model. There are municipalities, and a municipality is where a city and a county merge and become one. Davidson County is an example of this. So all of Davidson County, unless it was already another city, is also Nashville. That's why a lot of people refer to it as the Davidson County Nashville metro area. So that it's actually both Davidson County and metro. Now, there were a few cities that already existed, and they didn't get gobbled up, so they stayed exactly where they were. Their boundaries were locked at what they were. So there's municipalities, and then there are other things called charter counties. And a charter county is a county that has said the state has different ways you can be, different kinds of counties you can be. And one of the counties you can be is a charter county. And what that charter county says is that you have to get everybody in your county to vote. And if they vote, if a majority of them vote on making you a charter county, then you can adopt a charter, and that charter can dictate the way that your government operates. If that's not the case, then you have to follow the rules the state has already established for you. So what are some of those rules? Well, you've got to have a mayor. I used to call them county executives, but now they changed it to a county mayor. So you've got to have a county mayor. You've got to have a sheriff. You've got to have a register of deeds. You've got to have a property assessor. You've got to have a circuit court clerk, and you've got to have a county clerk. So you've got to have a road superintendent, and you've got to have an election commission. So you've got to have some of those things, and those are things that every county has, unless you are a metropolitan or a type of form of government or a home rule form of government. And if you're a metropolitan, you've got some different offices in there. And then if you are a home rule, you can make your own rules up. Someone has to still do the function of those offices, but it could be, the titles can be different. The offices can be different. So one of the things I mentioned when I said metropolitan government, the parts of the other cities in Davidson County kind of got frozen and locked in their current shape. It's important to think about, how do cities grow? How do they become a city? So you have to get enough people in that area to say they want to be a city. They want to incorporate. And then you have an election. You petition the county and petition the state. The state gives you the authority to do it, and then you can become an incorporation. You can become a city or a town. And then that town can grow. And this might be a little more detail than you need, but it's worth to remember that there's the state government has set up a thing called your urban growth boundary. And the urban growth boundary tells a city how big they can get. Like, this is your area. It's not your city. It's not part of the city now, but this is, if you grow, this is where you need to grow. And they give them the authority. Up till about 5 years ago, a city could annex into its urban growth boundary, so it could gobble up some of that land that's in its urban growth boundary with just voting to decide to do so. But whenever it did absorb that area, it had to provide services to that area equal to the services it provides everyone else within a certain amount of time. Now, that changed several years ago, about 5 or 6 years ago. Actually, more than that now, probably about 10 years ago, that changed the rules that said, okay, you can only annex an area if everyone that owns land in that area wants to be annexed. So if one person says, I don't want to be in the city, then you can't take that person's property. So it's really changed the way annexation worked. And the reason that law changed is because people were getting mad because a lot of cities were gobbling them up and they didn't have any choice in the matter. Now you may say, well, why would someone not want to be in the city? If you're offered more services, why would you not want to be in the city? And the answer is pretty simple, because you don't get anything for free. So when you get more services, you have to pay more taxes. So city taxes can sometimes be significantly higher than taxes in the county. And that's the case with Rutherford County and Murfreesboro and Smyrna. Not super difference in Eagleville. They're not as big, and they don't provide as much resources or much services. So hopefully this gives you some sort of idea about the many different pieces of city and county government and how they work together to form the government that affects us in our everyday lives and creates an environment for how we live day to day. So one last thing to talk about, a little bit of difference between the two, is I want to talk about law enforcement. I talked about that on the state level, and I want to talk about it on the city level, and that's pretty easy. That's typically police. So Murfreesboro has a police department. They have a police chief. That police chief works for, in our case, works for the mayor or the city manager, those are two different positions. But the mayor's elected. The city manager is a full-time person who's running the city. So the police chief works for the city council, and they move forward, and they run a police department. The county has a sheriff's office. The sheriff is elected, so that's an elected position. You do have to have a certain amount of law enforcement experience. You have to be what's called post-certified, and that's a certification that you've got a certain amount of basic training in law enforcement. So you do have to pass the you have to be post-certified to be able to run for sheriff. But if you are post-certified, anybody can run. It's just like mayor, city mayor, county commission, city council. So that's a little bit of the difference between the law enforcement angle. Also, I mentioned, I threw a couple terms out there. One was city council. So there's a city council in Murfreesboro, a small group of people. City councils typically are less than 10 people. Sometimes they're less. Sometimes they can be 3 or even 5 people, depending on the size of the city. Nashville's an exception to that. Nashville's huge. It had 40-something members. There's some state laws, and there's a legal battle right now trying to figure out exactly how many people that they can have in their city council. Murfreesboro, the county commission. The county commission we have 21 people. So our Rutherford County Commission has 21 people, and they're elected. They have districts all over the county, and they make the rules for the county. The county mayor executes those rules and runs the county and runs the business of the county. Every elected official answers to the people and nobody else. So the sheriff doesn't answer to the mayor. The circuit court clerk doesn't answer to the mayor. They all do their own thing. And then on top of that, we also have other elected offices, things that also get elected that are a little bit different. So there's an elected, an appointed election commission. And that election commission, it's a handful of people that get appointed by the state election commission that takes and makes the rules for the elections here in Rutherford County. So Rutherford County, just Tennessee in general, has a bottom-up electoral system, so or election system. So the county decides who can be on the ballot here. The county decides who can vote in Rutherford County, and then we tell the state, here's a list of people that are on the ballot, and here's a list of the people that can vote here. And then it's a bottom up. We tell the state. And then there's a few other things in the state, like school board. So school board's an elected position. You elect school board. I think there's three county commission districts to every one school board district. So there's fewer school board people than county commissioners, and they make all the rules for the public schools here in Rutherford County. There's also a city school system, but it is all run through the mayor's office and the city council. So, all right, well, that is local government. So if you have any questions, you can post those in the comments below, or you can ask them next time we get together. Either way, thank you so much, and I'll talk to you later.